Let's jump into the council chamber pool.
Oh,
I know you've been
yeah.
going to a lot of meetings.
I have not missed a meeting since December 2018.
Wow.
Committed.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Committed. Yeah.
Now it's a little different because I read the reports before the meeting, but I don't get the insight that I did as a councillor with asking staff for a history behind this issue. I have to do my own research that way. But no, it's still very good.
Yeah.
It's like I'm observing more. I'm not in the game, but I'm watching the game.
What have you learned
What have I learned?
as an observer of the council business?
Well, actually, the first thing I want to talk about, which they haven't talked, I haven't seen it, is there was new technology added to the city council chamber, I think in the summer.
Yep.
One of them is the camera. That one's not too good. There's people aren't complaining about that because it goes with the voice activation. So if I'm talking, the camera's on me. And then so when they call out the votes and they go, yes, 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 the camera's all over the place.
Right.
But what I do like, and I've had a lot of citizens saying, I don't go to the chamber because I'm hard of hearing. And the acoustics are wrong. Even if you're not hard of hearing, when you're sitting in the chamber, you sat there a long time. The acoustics are wrong. I'm not hearing it well.
Yep.
What they have now is Bluetooth technology. I put my AirPods in. I have an app on my phone, and I hear clearly every word that's spoken through all those microphones.
Oh.
1 second delay. That is it. So that is fantastic. And they haven't, I haven't seen any media posting on that to tell people of this benefit.
So
so I'm doing it.
For those who struggle with hearing, there's an option there at
There's
City
an
Council.
option, yes, yes. So what I have observed, I have observed that the newer councillors, like the first term councillors.
I'm going to get you to swivel your mic a little bit towards that way. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
a little bit more. Yeah, because that's
Okay.
good. That works.
The first term councillors, that I'd like to tell them it's okay sometimes to go ask for guidance, like the Mac Bains and the ones that have been in Chris and Mark, and ask them for guidance because sometimes they'll have a different insight because they've seen this 10 years ago. But don't always stick with the same guy.
Right.
Go to different ones. Get a different perspective, get a different point of view. Because if you always stick to the same guy, he might take the advantage to groom you to what he wants you to, how he wants you to vote. And you always want to stay independent.
Be diverse in your mentorship.
Yes, be diverse. To always do your research, be prepared, read all the reports, and be prepared on how you're going to vote. This is feedback from citizens that when you are going to vote, and sometimes, like when they had the ad hoc committee for the new community center or for others, they'll just come out and they'll say, yes, 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 yes. And wow, that was really interesting. Tell me why it's a yes, because your yes may be different than the guy next to you's yes. So it's good to know the perspectives of where you're coming from. So that part is, so you need to improve on transparency by telling people why you're voting yes or why you're voting no. And sometimes you can have 2 or 3 concerns and itemize them, but you're still going to vote yes, but you're pointing out a few concerns.
Right.
Because unfortunately, it's just a yes or no. If it was, if we could rate it from 1 to 10, the yeses would be between 5 and 10 or between 6 and 10, right? So you need to explain to people why.
Yeah, that's helpful because if they don't have attached a rationale for their vote, it appears like they're working in lockstep and not thinking for themselves. So having some type of idea why they're voting and hearing them articulate it would be helpful for the constituents. And
to always remember that you were elected maybe by a group of voters, a group. A labor group helped you get elected, as somebody helped you get elected, a circle of friends. But at the end of the day, you're an elected official on council and you represent the whole community. And you need to do what's right and what's fair for the community as a whole, not just for your interest group, because the people will notice that at the end. So that's important. And what I'm finding is what you have voiced during your campaign, what was important to you, you need to share and remember that when you're voting yes or no. And be yourself. Be true to you're true to yourself, so you'll sleep well at night. Okay.
Well, these are interesting observations and good, helpful hints. Have you noticed people not doing the things you're talking about?
Yeah. And that's the disappointment with that camera right now. That's why I'd encourage everybody to go in person at the council chamber, because sometimes it happened a few weeks ago with the intimate partner violence.
Yeah.
And Councillor Raybosch had a really good point. But if you saw the facial and body language of the two, the mover and the seconder, I was like, but you have to be open and listen to what she's telling you, because she's part of the team. And maybe next time consider her, or consider more people to view that motion before you even, it becomes.
I watched that meeting.
Yeah.
And I heard her talking, and I saw that she was feeling like she wasn't being listened to, and it wasn't welcome. Her commentary wasn't welcome.
Thank you. And you were doing it on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I understand the people involved in the issue a little bit too.
Yeah.
And I was reading her reaction to the pressure she was probably feeling from Peter. And the fact that people didn't want her to gum up that vote for more discussion. Interestingly, I didn't see any media coverage of that decision after all the talk beforehand.
Yes. And
did you see any? I didn't see any.
And what one of the things I'd like to see, and I question mark over here, there's hardly any scrums anymore at City Council. And I know there's less journalists, and I know you guys are overworked, but what scrums did is nothing is script. So now you can get the real truth. Sometimes it'll slip out, and you guys are keen enough to pick up on that. But when you say, oh, Joanne, can I call you tomorrow at 2:00? Fine. Now I'm going to prepare myself, and I'm just going to say what I'm going to say and make sure I stay in that framework.
Yeah, I was always sort of hot and cold on the scrum thing after council meetings, because I thought what counted was what they said in public.
Yes. Okay.
And often when you get them in the scrum, they say something different. But I thought it was more important to report what they said in public. But I've noticed there's a lot less said in public and during the meeting, so it makes the scrum more important.
Right. Let's see. One of the things right now, we think it's almost been a year. Their first meeting was.
So this is officially the first year assessment that we're doing.
Yes. So the first meeting, if I remember well, was the motion to invite Mr. Valin back. Give us a status report. Where is that? A whole year? I'm sure he's replied, but why are you not even at council just saying he's been invited? He's too busy. But tell us something.
Oh, that question never got answered then. Okay.
No. And
I think anybody that's close to what's going on understand that he wasn't interested in coming from in front of council again. I think also there was, I may be corrected on this, but I think he fell and was injured for a little portion of that.
Okay.
So, there might be, good reasons and whatnot,
but there could have been a public statement respecting his privacy, just saying he's not available at now and we'll hear from him in 2025.
Yeah.
Or
it seemed like
something.
it was pretty important before the election.
It was important during the campaign.
Yeah.
They made, everybody jumped on the bandwagon. Yeah. It was very important to everyone. But right after that motion is done, where's transparency, or where is keeping us posted? Yeah, the follow-up on it. I find, and I'm also I went to all the long-term financial policy meetings. I started maybe going to a community safety and well-being ad hoc committee meetings, maybe number 2 or number 3, and I thought, this is interesting, I'm coming back. And so I have watching, and I find that there's some councillors that have a hard time distinguishing between governing and operating.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, on the Community Safety Wellbeing Committee,
Mm-hmm.
It was said one of them said, "Oh, and I went down the street and I talked to the manager of so and so and so, and it's okay, they're fine." Well, that's not your job. Your job is to set the policy. Let staff do that. And then staff came in and said, "Oh, we already spoke to him." So now you're jumping in, and maybe you're going to say something different that will give a bad impression or change that manager. But you told me A, and this guy told me B, so I want B. So you got to watch it, not to stay within your realm of power. It's governing and policy making, but not operating. Not operating. And I've seen it before when I first started, where I had a councillor arguing with staff that we should be using farming diesel everywhere. And it was like this. And then at the end, the staff said, if you use farming diesel in our backhoes, it might cost a bit less money, but we have to put the backhoe on a trailer. We cannot drive it in the street. We have to put the backhoe on a trailer, drive it to the site. Then the operator does his thing. So now you need another employee and you need more equipment.
Mm-hmm.
But that's operating, and that should not be a discussion.
Well, that's how a councillor must learn those things, though. By
Oh,
asking stupid
no,
questions.
not when they've been around 10 years. And actually, you ask those questions before the meetings, and that's why the staff, your personnel is there, your directors are there to educate you if that's an interest.
Has anybody that was elected to council this term impressed you?
Everybody's had their ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not. I expected a lot out of the four,
Mm-hmm.
5, 6.
Yeah, I think 5.
5, 6.
Yeah.
Mr. Councillor Lowry, Councillor Gardner. I expected more, and yet they're just quiet. It's like everyone's on eggshells, and they just go. They don't want to rock the boat. Sometimes when I talk with one in private, it's like, "Oh, that's fantastic." Next, it's on committee. Now they're going to vote for it at the council meeting. They just vote with it. They should have voted no. The way they spoke with me, they should have voted no and explained why, and it was bang on. But they just go with the flow. Everybody else is saying yes. They just say yes. They don't explain, which is a lost opportunity.
Yeah, we're talking about I wonder what that is. Is it that they realize that they have to play along to get along? Is it a matter of understanding that being a lone wolf means you can't get anything done? Are they learning those ropes? Is that the thing?
But then you have four or 5 lone wolves.
Well, that's what I've recognized from this council.
And those lone wolves will create a pack.
Yeah.
One day, right?
If they don't nip each other in the behind the whole time, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to put 4 alphas together in one little table and get something done.
And I've this is a thing that I don't think you get with the camera and then on site is the smiles and the nods, the body language when some are speaking, and the body language, but like you say, when others are not listening. And yeah.
I used to pick up on a lot of that when I was covering council on a regular basis, and that's what helped inform me in understanding, who's with who respects who doesn't respect the others, and that really helps you when you're making
and those side conversations, not necessarily at council, but at committee level, prior or sometimes during the meeting. I was shocked to hear that they were already starting on how they're going to get reelected in 4 years. Already.
Well, that's your first job after getting elected is figuring out how to get reelected.
Well, I was wrong. I just wanted to do good for the community.
You did it all backwards.
Right, yeah. But anyway, that's interesting on how, and it's like, take care of what's in front of you right now.
Yeah.
And I've always been a database decision maker. That was probably because owning a business, it took me probably 10 years to get the emotions out of it and to decide this isn't bringing in revenues, get rid of it, bring something else in.
Right.
Or you had to make decisions because at the end, it was my income too that was being affected. And so you have to do what's best for the business or what's best for the community.
Right.
Yeah. Not what's best for Joanne.
Is Joanne preparing to run again?
It's in the back of my head, yes. Back of my mind. That's why I'm staying current. So I can hit the...
So if you decide to, you'll be ready?
I will be ready. You don't know... Well, my life will change more. My husband will be that much older. My mother's taking up a lot of care time. I'm the rover.
Right.
Because I'm available. So but yes, I'm prepared. But by then, my sister will be retired.
Right.
So my right arm will be retired. So that's a bonus.
Right, on mine. And she just got a Rotary Award.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
What was that award? Community?
Unsung Hero. And she is one. And the reason she was... Giselle nominated her was because Giselle is also involved in Tour de Trout and sees how much Chantal does as the land coordinator.
Right.
Like I just get my swimmers ready and I have fun and I swim. She does everything else. Okay. She sends all the texts every night. But she's also with the sledge hockey team too, right? She was a founder of the sledge hockey team and she's been the manager since 2002. She's been their manager. She's also represented them at provincial level.
Right.
But she's also for 15 years was the coordinator with the Recreation Tourism Ministry, provincial ministry.
Okay.
Planning the sledge hockey portion of the Para Winter Games and another winter game. So every year there's a big hockey tournament. Lots of winter, usually Kingston area for skiing but she takes care of the sledge hockey component of it. And she's been doing that for 15 years.
Wow.
So that, and then she mentioned other stuff that she's done that I've totally forgotten as a 14-year-old candy striper at the hospital. Her first volunteerism was as an 8-year-old signing up for the walkathon for the Y, and it was a long distance, and my mom didn't discourage her. My mom followed her with her car.
Yeah.
And it was all the way to Premier, and she had to do stamps at certain locations to prove she had been there, and she did it all. And then she does a lot with the school.
Well,
also.
Look at you two sisters, eh?
Yeah.
Right
and sometimes she'll get me. She volunteers me with the sledge.
Yeah.
When they'd have preparing for winter games, lots of times it was Sudbury, Midland, North Bay together. I would rent a big van because we had 5 guys in wheelchairs, and I would drive the van. And I kept on remembering my dad would say, "Joanne, the back will follow the front. Just worry about the front."
Yeah.
Drive all the way to McTier, and they would have their practices at McTier, and then bring them all back home. Yeah, so I was the driver.
Really?
So it's mutual. We help each other out.
What could council have done this year that they didn't, that they need to really look at for next year?
What with the budget? I was really upset in a way that it felt like reserves were an easy way out.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit, and you called me this morning, but last year, basically, the budget cost, let's say, almost $166 million to operate the city. And they took $3 million of reserve to help to top up to 106, so they didn't want, okay. But I don't think they understood the repercussions of that.
That doesn't include the full budget, I don't think.
No, that was just the operating budget.
Yeah.
Okay? So they don't understand is how you're going to wean yourself off that, because next year you'll want it again. But you have to wean yourself.
I thought the budget, even if you don't count the capital, I thought they were up to 130 somehow.
Oh, they're 150, but the levy need to collect $106 million from the
taxpayers.
From the taxpayers.
Right. That's what it is.
And they decided to only collect
106 million from taxpayers, and the total budget's up above
150 something.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. And that's the operating.
Yeah, the operating. But what they did is they took $3 million from reserve. They also took from the water and wastewater $845,000 out of there.
Quite a bit, yeah.
and that's only a $25 million, operating budget. But what they also did, and this is what's going to happen this year, is after the budget was passed, they put out a tender for the resurfacing program, right? Repaving some roads. In the budget, it was $3.6 million. It came back as, I'll round it off, $4.6 million. No big deal. We're not going to take it from reserve because we've already done our budget. Let's just borrow that million from another project from 2024. So now this year they have to pay back that $1 million that they took from the McEwen project. Okay. And now they need to decide. Reality tells you that if you want to maintain this or resurface the same amount of kilometers of road in North Bay, it's now 4.6. It's not 3.6. So you got to add another million to your budget, another $1 million into your budget for that. Plus you got to get another $1 million in it because you borrowed money from Paul. Now you got to go pay back Paul next year. So I don't like it when you take money from future projects, because I was at the bank on their board for 14 years, also with my business. When you start to show that you don't have fiscal discipline, then you get into trouble. And I've experienced it, because you'll say, well, I'll take the grocery money from 2 weeks from now and I'm going to go to the movies. But then when 2 weeks happens, you don't have the money. So that's going to put pressure on. So their other way out. They have to fill a hole. They have to fill a hole, and they are either decide we can't. Let's say they resurface 100 kilometers, we can't do it. We have to bring it. What does 3.6 give us? And now we're going to be even further behind. Instead of getting your road redone every 50 years, your subdivision is going to be 60 years. Right. So that's a big decision they're going to have to make. One of the things I learned in my business from a really wise man that was his wife was a customer: pay now or pay more later. And this is going to be a good example of that. What also is going to be coming in is the city staff's contract negotiations are coming up. The fire department and emergency services, right? That is going to be coming up. And last year, so you're going to have this council set a precedent. They took an 8% increase. And yet, during that budget meeting, Councillor Gardner said, I really think it's a tough year. We need to show leadership. First of all, I think he might have said, let's not. And everybody, no. Then he said, well, and then he came back a little while later and said, how about 4? Let's meet halfway. And they wouldn't. Everybody said, nope. It says CPI is 8, we're going 8. And in the total whim of the budget, it's not that much, but it's the principle.
Yeah, I think it added like $35,000. Yeah,
but it's the principle of the thing.
You have to double check that.
You set the example. Yeah, you're the leader. Set the examples.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot when you're talking about $150 million budget.
No,
but it's a principle.
Well, it did mean a lot with the Integrity Commissioner's bill. That was 35.
Yeah, there's another 30.
So there's a lot of things that say a lot. Anyway, that's my take on it, on that.
What lesson do you think they learned from that, the particular disagreements in how to get along, and the Integrity Commissioner's investigation? What do you think was the...
I don't know how much conflict management they did prior to it. I do know that from reading the report that the mayor tried with one. He tried to talk to one and maybe talk to the other. But I would have said, do you know that there's a really, really good professor at Nipissing that internationally known for conflict management?
Oh, right, yeah. They didn't try mediation.
No, maybe and I don't know, maybe they didn't want to go there. They want to keep it in-house, like hush, hush, hush. But by reading, I'm sure you read all the report.
Yeah, I did.
There was a few things that raised that you kind of got behind the story. I believe Sarah did not know the procedures, and you were only talking about A. We're not going to discuss B. B is a different issue. She had B in mind. And I believe she's not going to approach B now because people will think it's just
retaliatory.
Yeah. So I think there was more at play politically behind behind that happened. And this is the first that it's between two councillors, whereas in my term, it was citizens, right, asking the integrity. And that was 52,000. And nobody seemed to flinch an eye on that one.
More, actually. I was told that eventually the overall cost was up closer to 80.
Was it?
They were north of there. Yeah, that's the numbers I was hearing.
Okay.
Eventually.
We kept on adding.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That was a pretty expensive exercise.
That was, yes. And to have, I won't criticize it.
Yeah. Well, it's water under the bridge, really.
Yes, water under
But
the
it's
bridge.
an example.
It's an example, but all these things, you need to learn from them. And they need to be there. So if it comes back in 10 years, you need to go back to that report and learn from it. And maybe, history is really important. And it steers you into the right decision for the future.
Right.
And if you don't remember those, then you're going to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Yeah.
Biggest, how would you rate the first year overall? You've seen several first years, the one before your council, and, when we were paying attention to municipal politics, you saw your first year.
Yeah.
I kind of looked at it like a bit of a lost year myself.
Yes. They just put their foot in the water. They didn't dive in.
Right. There
now they know the water's deep. They can dive. There's no rocks under.
Yeah. Well, it'd be nice to see some of them with that had strong positions on things go forward and get something done.
And I, from being at committees and listening to conversations, side conversations prior or questions asked during the committee, I believe that there's a few of them that have realized that there are some things they followed suit and they probably regret, and they realize they've been euchred. And now they can't come out and admit it, but they're going to learn and they will not be euchred again.
Right.
Okay,
right.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. This first year was a bit of a lesson for a bunch.
Yes, and it's going to be that. Hopefully, we'll get more discussions before the vote.
It's interesting that I'm not sure. Did you hear Dave Thompson and I?
Yes, I did it last night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We were trying to think of who would sort of play the role of a veteran who paid attention.
Yes.
And immediately I was thinking of Tanya, and just because I've seen her growth over the years, you might take another term before she gets there. She still gets a little bit upset and sort of thrown off by the people that are opposed to her. Yeah. So I think you still have to learn a little bit how to play the game a bit. And then I thought of Lana. I think she has some potential with more water under the bridge as far as her experience goes. She
spreads her wings.
Yeah, and I see Mac and Mark not on the next council in my mind.
I didn't think of Mark when you said that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but who do you think, who's going to be around next term to be a veteran councillor? Yeah,
well, next term, I think it may be different depending on the leadership. I believe that right now all your seasoned councillors are just, they've been at it before, and they're just going to take care of business but not make any noises and survive. There's a lot of people that are in survival mode in that building.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my perception or my observations.
But who do you think for sure is going to be running next term? Because I could see possibly a couple people that are first termers not running again.
No, because it is a shock.
It's not much fun.
It's not much fun. I had times my right hand would say, "Don't read the social media tonight. Please don't read it. I don't want to." And I wouldn't. especially when I had this man from Iroquois Falls asking me if the cat got my tongue and stuff like that, because he wanted to come to North Bay and do that fabric dome for the arena. And when I read up on everything that's happened in Collingwood, it was like staff told me you can't talk about it because we'll take care of it, because right away by talking, he disqualified himself to tender. By talking to staff, by talking to councillors, you disqualify yourself from tendering, from the tendering process. But I just stayed. I thought, no, don't read, don't look at comments, don't. I had decided that I was taking the projects, the community chair projects, and continuing to advance them and not question what the previous council had did. I read all the minutes, I read all the reports, and I thought, no, that's okay, let's continue. I'm not going to start at square one because we're never going to get there. And what happened, because when Councillor King, Chair King started, it was $24 million. It took him a while to get going, to get his committee going. He didn't want a meeting with just quorum. I think he wanted them all there. And when I started, it was like at 28, 29 million. Okay, but it was interesting.
You remember the press conference after the debate? You had it over at 176 Place.
Yes.
And I pressed you to say, okay, how much is too much? And I finally, we got you to say 70 million was too much.
Yeah. Because we were already going at it with 40.
Yeah.
And now we got 26 from the feds, or whatever my math was at that time.
And you said 70 was too much. And it's funny that it came in at 72.
Well, or then you go back and you do like Sault Ste. Marie and just do part of it and come back in 4 or 5 years when we can get a 33 cents, like a third, which is what's others got. And I understand that some of the reasons, but it just would have been nice. But we got the feds at 50 at the time. But it's very political, and it's sad, because at the end of the day, those kids just want to skate, and those parents. I now experience an 8-year-old, and the grandparents are traveling all over the region just to watch a hockey practice, just to watch a hockey game, because they can't play them in North Bay. So this can't go on for long.
Yeah, there is a time limit for those two arenas.
And as a councillor, your job is to maintain or replace. And we do not want to have an Elliott Lake, do we? I was always in the back of my mind. At one point, there's human mistakes also, that an engineer will say, "Oh, it's fine, sound is fine. You have 2 more years out of West Ferris, and what if we don't? What if we don't?"
Well, I understand that point of view.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see, the engineering reports, I guess, on that. I'm not too worried about West Ferris like some, but there's an issue on the flat part of the roof, right?
Yes.
So over the dressing rooms.
Yeah, and there's an issue.
I think more so than the barrel ones.
The community room, it's all crooked.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think they don't use the kitchen anymore and the elevator, because it's all crooked. Like, there's a lot of little movements and stuff like that. And
I could see it being a tear down too.
Yeah. I mean, we've both had old cars.
Yeah.
And you're probably a guy who always has old cars, but you know when to walk away.
Yeah.
When you don't throw good money into.
Yeah, no, there's a point of no return.
Yeah.
Diminishing return on investment.
Yeah. So.
I've had a couple cars with frame issues, and when you get into some transmissions, you never know. So there's a point of no return, and definitely they need to do something. And all the options, we could talk about it forever.
Oh no, it's very political, and
we need to replace. We need a twin pad somewhere somehow.
Yes, we need a twin pad.
Yeah,
and. Yeah, it was, my
Have you ever thought it was a good idea in between the gardens and the Y?
That's April 23rd, 2019.
Yeah.
That was my meeting. And I asked for it was like 0.05% of that budget. So I could go get another soil study between the YMCA and the Memorial Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And they said no. They changed the amendment. They amended the motion. We're choosing a location today.
Yeah.
They chose.
That was the very boss just saying we studied it enough.
They chose Michelle, and the deciding factor was my vice chair, Scott. And he spoke before he said he wanted Michelle, but the reasoning behind it was he rode the bus all day talking to people on the bus. And most people told him that they wanted at Michelle and not nowhere else. And that's how he based his decision. Now, that's what he said. And that was such a hardship. But at the end of the day, I probably was wrong in a way. I thought you could only have one ice plant with the 3, but they had told me it had to be lined up with the other ice plants, straight line. And anyway, but it would have been nice to have taken a few more months to pursue that.
Yeah.
Because then it would have become such a hub.
Yeah. So they should be asking people about the 52 million twin pad pretty soon, eh? Have you heard anything? Where's that sit?
No, I don't.
I heard it was coming pretty soon.
But all I know is every 3 months is another how many millions increase? 5%? No, it's now 9% increase every year. So you're talking about the inflation rate of construction costs.
Oh, right.
Right? That's why it jumped to 67.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably close to, I think it's 1.5 million or
once
something.
Once they start building the million homes that everybody's promising, that cost is going to go up exponentially for sure.
Yeah, but it just needs to be done.
Pay now or pay more later.
Exactly. And what got me was because the architects recommended a different shape. It wasn't a box.
Mm-hmm.
It threw everyone off.
Yep.
But there were good reasons for that, and I guess nobody wanted to listen to those. They just wanted a box, like they're thinking inside the box. It wasn't anyway. But now that originally, like that 40 million when we first started, or 50 million, is going to be would be nice right now. And we'll see. But I mean, Councillor Gardner said that they would be able. He's confident he can build one.
Well, I guess we'll see.
For 52. But there he goes again, governing or operating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's a hands-on kind of guy.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. No problem. I'm looking.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works.
No. And I'm more concerned. Right. What I'm concerned about is more the how and not the what. Mm-hmm. I'm making sure there's a lot of red flags. So I'm making sure that things are done according to democracy, to the bylaws, and how things were come. And there's a few things that are buried at committee level. And so I'm going to be looking into that.
Well, it's nice to know somebody's paying attention.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to cover all the meetings. I might watch tonight's, but
yeah.
What's coming up tonight? I know this show won't go until after.
It's the long-term financial policy is coming out of committee, but it's going to or out of the ad hoc committee, and I believe the recommendation will be that it goes to committee and it'll come back in January to be discussed. That was a different committee. I attended them all, and the first day there, I realized they were all newbies.
Yep.
Nobody why was there not one or two councillors from the previous term to come in with a little bit more perception? Mm-hmm. So they were all newbies. And there was one thing that I did not like. They based a decision on invalid data.
Oh.
So that I did not like. And one person says, blah, 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 and everybody else echoes it. So, I mean, it is a big deal it will be a big deal for some people, but will they see it? Will they comment on it? Will they object? Is it planned that it comes out just before Christmas time and comes out when people aren't as interested and they're going to be busy?
Nobody's interested right now.
Yeah, no one's interested, and then maybe that's a great time as a politician to pass it through. But
usually is, for sure. Yeah. And in those budget discussions, they're always hard for people to get engaged into, right?
Yeah.
They're tough.
They're tough, but then when you go back to the basics and look at it as your household budget and just in bigger picture, then you say, well, I would never do that. I would never go I'm putting money aside for a car that I'm going to buy in 3 years. I'm not going to take money for that to go do something else right now with it. Fiscal discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know how household budgets are. Right?
No.
Mine's pretty razor thin. Yeah. I was saving up for some glasses, and then my kid needed an MRI because of his shoulder, and it was necessary to try to get a specialist to look at him. So I took a long look at my budget, and so I had to delete my beer off the budget. So, you have to make decisions.
Beer store gift cards are good for you for Christmas?
Well, actually, when I'm not buying beer on a regular basis, probably not a good idea to mooch it off people. And you know what? I like beer as part of my budget. It's part of my diet. It helps me be regular. And I was raised an alcoholic, so it's always nice to have a beer or two, right? I manage it very well. Right. When I'm dedicated to nixing the cost mostly because I'm cheap. Yeah. Right. It's easy for me to say nope. Right. So, that same sort of discipline somehow comes into council, right? And nobody really gets really interested in the budget council until you start talking about acts and services.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, until they're...
Right, the old, they're tired of the old, we're looking at 9%, but we're going to whittle it down to 2.9 or 3.9, right? To the price points that they think people will accept. But eventually you got to look at how you're spending the money, right? And that's when people are going to be most interested.
Yes. And I've always looked at council's money, city money, as my own. Like that's how maybe I would deal with $100 or $200 at a time, and there it's like 10,000 chunks. Like if I can save 10,000, that's great.
Right.
And that.
Yeah. That's where it adds up.
Yeah, that's where it adds up.
Because it's hard to take $1 million out of a budget, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah. It is.
A lot of things are mandated.
Yes.
Growth costs are exponentially up. You can't hold them back, even when you talk about the firefighters, the police.
No. And even what you forget within that, and you can say, well, we didn't hire anybody, but people are going up in the wage grid. They're moving their way up. They're taking more courses. They have more experience. So you have to give in that pay scale, they're going up. So you have to honor that. You don't want to lose your staff.
Because turnover costs money.
Turnover costs money, and especially when you start training them, and they know what they're doing, and they're self-sufficient. Everybody's self-sufficient, but you know what I mean.
Especially when you try to kick them out the door, they cost more.
Yeah. There seems to be a history of that, eh?
Well, if only we had the money spent on getting rid of people.
Yes, that would be $1 million probably in the last. Few years.
Yeah.
Last five, 6, 7.
Hiring decisions, firing decisions, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's very costly to manage staff that way. But it's a cost of doing business politically.
Yes.
It's a political cost.
It is, yes. And I've seen it with other organizations that when you're up at the top, you're vulnerable. You can do the best job but you're always vulnerable for that politician who maybe doesn't like the way you're directing it, or that you're doing what's right for your company and it's not necessarily what's right for the politician, or they happen to try to take a mistake and put it on your back instead of theirs. So that
personality, old things happening. You could write a book on that stuff. Maybe somebody will someday.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was a bit about Cassellholme.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about Cassellholme for a while.
Well, I've been attending all the meetings since January.
Oh, no kidding.
And what happened is when I was not elected, I said to myself, okay, Joanne, what are you going to do? And I did get on 2 committees with the city, and one's only once every 3 months, and the other one is once every 2 weeks as needed, as required. So I have lots of time. So I thought, you know what committees would I have liked to have been on when I was on that I didn't have time for? And it was Cassellholme and the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. I have only gone to the North Bay Mattawa Conservation once, and I don't have time yet to commit to that one, just because they're back. One's Wednesday, one's Thursday of the same week. But I have been going to, and as a public, I attend by Zoom. I have, there's a lot of things happening since the last week.
Oh.
So it would be, I would recommend people, and I'm the only person there.
Yeah.
And to the point where some of the politicians comment, oh, it's just Joe.
Yeah.
And they fixed the sound finally since January. You can only hear 2-3 words after every 6 or 7, and you get static and it cuts. And I contacted the CAO, and she said, easy fix. Wasn't fixed. Contact through Zoom, the host, which is another employee. Sounds bad. Is it bad for you? No replies ever. So finally, the chair sent an email. No response. Resend the email 2 weeks later. No response. Asked the city clerk in North Bay to print it out and personally deliver it. She did. Next council meeting, he spoke to me, but never answered the questions. Okay? So right now, if there's somebody out there who knows, I'm trying to find the integrity commissioner for long-term nursing homes.
Oh.
Because if I go, I can go to the North Bay Integrity Commissioner, but that would cost the city of North Bay, only the city of North Bay, that cost. Right. But if I could find a ministry watchman that does the governance, and I've asked a few, and they'll say, oh, what do you mean governance? And I said, well, this is what's happening. I want this addressed. And no, not me. Hang up. So it's hard to get yes, I will look into it and I will let them know that they're out of order or they're.
So they're supposed to have public meetings, but they're not making them available because the technology's not working for them?
They are available. You just can't hear.
Right.
The technology. So what happened last week is one of their board members was out of town and doing Zoom. It was a very interesting meeting, probably the most important meeting for interests since January. So I chatted with her on Zoom. And I said, are you hearing this? She says, no, I'm only catch. So then at one point they said, oh, what do you think of this? She goes, how can I give you an opinion? I can't hear it. It sounds awful. Oh, we'll put it louder. So then she rolls her eyes. So about 5 minutes later, she said, this is a very important meeting. You want me to vote? I can't even understand what you're talking about.
Right.
Now she said, is this being pre-recorded? Yes. Can I have a copy? Yes. I wish I could have said, well, I want a copy too, because it's a public meeting.
Yeah.
And I'm here and I can't understand.
Right.
But that's...
What was the important topic?
Let's say there's a new card on the table with Castle Arms.
Oh, a new card on the table.
On the table that the Cassellholme board can deal the deck differently now. Okay.
Why are you being mysterious?
Oh, because I only heard half of it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I heard, did I hear lawsuit? Not sure. Did I hear, so I
Oh, okay.
So that's where it's
Something
at.
funky.
Something funky, yes.
So the media in town, check out the Cassellholme board meetings. Something's going on.
Well, one of the things I can tell you in the last 2 meetings, and maybe this has happened before, but this is me observing, whenever a Cassellholme board member is talking about Castle Arm and wants to bring back, where is the motion from the Cassellholme board that said you could hire a lawyer to separate from, okay, where is that? And this lady will not give up. Good for her. Whenever things like that.
Who is this?
A lady from the Matawan area.
Okay, right.
Anyway, but whenever they're talking about Castle Arm, right at the moment, the last 2 meetings, Councillor Chris Main, declares a conflict and leaves the room. So you're saying, what has changed that he's declaring a conflict?
Was that where Daphne is?
No, she's in, I think, Powassan,
Okay.
Anyway,
right.
no. So he's declaring a conflict. And then now I went to the Cassellholme website. It's Cassellholme. They're linked to Cassellholme. They're still together. They're not separate. And you do not have an executive director anymore. You only have directors. So, and Jamie Lowry is now a director of Cassellholme, not an executive director.
Oh, okay.
So who is the new director? Who knows? We don't know, but we don't have to know because it's private, correct? It's private now. So it's just me observing and having all these little dots, but trying to connect them. And hearing only half of it.
Right.
So I'm hoping, I had to leave the meeting a little earlier, but I still had it on because my doorbell rang and I could hear it clearly. So I think they fixed the sound real fast for that board member.
Oh.
So anyway, so it'll be interesting next month to see how well I can listen to all the words. But I would encourage other people because it does affect North Bay. I can tell you that you must know about the loan from Infrastructure Ontario. It was low interest rate, good time to borrow. Low interest rate, good time to borrow. But the contract is actually going to be signed after the building is built. It will be the interest rate of the day then, not when we started.
Oh.
I'm relieved, yeah. So that they're doing spreadsheets now and saying, oh, the interest rate was here. We said $2 million. If it goes worst scenario here, how much is that going to cost? So there's great information being shared. I wish a lot more professionals would zoom in and listen to it that would understand it probably much better than me. Much better than me. So we need to keep an eye on it. I think it might be a job for Super Mendo to fly in there. He had some interest before. Yes, he's been on the board before, so maybe he should. Yeah, there you go.
Let's get Dave Mendocino check out that Cassellholme board. See what's funky.
Yeah, he could. So there's interest. Just different things that are how they're done, and I feel as a citizen, the respect isn't there when they say, "Oh, it's just Joe again." Yeah. So that's microaggression.
Doesn't that feed your fire though?
Oh yeah, it does. But microaggression, microaggression.
Microaggression. I don't know. I hate that term.
Well, it's a small little pick.
Yeah, I know, but that's if everybody was so scared to say anything because it's considered microaggression, then you never know what they're thinking.
No.
And how they feel about you.
No.
Right? So, because I know a lot of people they'll look at you and smile and not say anything, but I know what they're feeling and thinking. And I'd rather hear it.
Okay, just like I believe last council meeting, I think it might have been a slip of the tongue and maybe not. Councillor King addressed somebody by their first name. For me, that's a lack of, you're not respectful of the position the other person holds on council. And that happened to me. During a committee meeting, and he started to, it was Councillor King, he started to call me Joe. Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe.
He gets a little familiar, yeah.
So I have to stop it now because pretty soon he won't even acknowledge that I'm in chair of community service. Yeah. So I just waited for him to be finished, and that's the way it was brought up. I didn't stop him, and maybe I should have stopped him and corrected him, but I waited for him to be finished, and before going to the next person that had raised their hand to ask a question, I just said, I would like, in this meeting, you need to address me as Chair Brousseau.
Yeah.
And that was it. I drew the line, and he never crossed it again.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can see that the need for decorum and respect to be shown. The microaggressions are actually just people being truthful.
Well, I just find that, if he takes that, then he's going to, you give him an inch and he takes a mile and he'll keep on taking and taking.
No, I can see how.
And you have to stop that. Yeah. And it was, again, there was a few other symbolic.
I'll keep that in mind when I think about those
There was a few other symbolic gestures during a committee meeting that others were offended by. And I didn't see it. I just let it be, was in one ear or the other. But, and then I thought, okay, the perception of they just didn't like the image of hovering over me and telling me what to do.
All right.
Okay. And it was like, fine, like you want to talk. And I did that with older brothers all my life.
Yeah.
So
well, some people are more sensitive to stuff than others.
But it's,
and I think some people use body language as a matter of leveraging their
yes.
And some would call it bullying.
Yeah.
Some would call it assertive physical leveraging, or whatever you want to call it, right? You're trying to gain a little bit by doing this. People should understand how to protect their personal space and to project and require respect from other people. Carry yourself like, and protect your space accordingly, and to not allow people to bully you. But it's I think bullying is an opportunity for growth on both sides, right?
Yes.
Just like put somebody a little bit, tell them how it has to be done, and put them in their place, and not accept it. And it is an important thing to learn how to assert yourself, right?
Yes.
But somehow the microaggression term just...
I know, it's a trendy thing about...
Yeah, it I guess where I get is like, I observe how people are.
Yeah.
I calculate that into how I understand them and how they feel about me. And I'm glad that I'm observant. I'm observant, and I can pick up on those things. And I have just enough self-esteem not to let people nick away at my self-esteem.
Right.
And
Right.
when I do recognize when I feel like I'm intimidated, right? But I put that on me.
Yes.
Right? I don't put it on the other person. Don't intimidate me. Yeah. I like, I should be in a position of not being intimidated.
Correct.
Right? So
that would be a good course.
I think, I think that
to take.
I guess that's how I look at these things, a little bit different. Make the person tougher and more assertive, rather than relying on people having to be gentle around them.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
I don't know. And I don't think people should be bullying other people either, right? No. But people need to learn how to have self-esteem and assert themselves.
The one thing is, it's quite different being an observer of the game instead of being in the game.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm picking up things that I probably didn't pick up when I was in the game.
Right.
And so that will make me a better person at the end of the day.
It would.
It will.
Like, I consider myself a professional observer.
Yes.
Right? And then I can articulate what I observe into a story. And those are tools you pick up by listening.
Yes.
And watching. Yeah. So that's great. And so you're going to be in a position after this term to make a decision whether you want to run for council or mayor.
Exactly.
Which?
I don't know yet. I'm saving money.
I guess so, eh?
Because whatever I run, I will be putting personal money to the max.
Yeah.
And yes, if people donate, great. We'll just
You don't want to rely on it, though, eh?
I don't want to rely on others. I want to rely. When I first ran in 2018, my mentor said, "Do not promise anything."
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did not promise anything, because now I didn't have, and I see it right now. Because I knew the game before the election on why some received money and some are getting endorsements and others aren't.
Yeah.
And it's
amazing that just a little bit of money buys somebody.
Well, when you think about it, the maximum is $1,200.
Yeah.
The maximum is $1,200. And
so how much would you really owe somebody for a $1,200 donation, right?
Yeah.
That shouldn't really... I'm always surprised when they dig into like provincial stuff and conflict and the real dirt, and it comes down to somebody bought them dinner. Like, people sell their soul for a dinner or something like that. Demand more.
Yeah, and that's where I cannot be bought.
Yeah,
I will not. And even when I had my store, and I had ladies come to me and say, "Okay, this is how much for the sewing machine," and they'd say, "How much if I pay cash?" And I would say, "Well, the same." Well, and then, how much? Well, okay, then I won't get an Interact fee, and then my commission on MasterCard is 3%. So let's take the 3%. No, that's not what I meant. And I said, I know what you meant.
Yeah.
But I said, will you be around when I get audited? And they realized that when let's say I have to put it under the table and I don't want to, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So they were very upset with me, but I didn't have to worry at night if I had an audit.
Right.
I play the game by the rules. I always play the game by the rules, and
you're not going to have a long career in politics.
Well,
just kidding.
It's interesting to see the younger mayors, or because I think, but maybe that's not right. I shouldn't say the younger mayor. The people that have value and morals and carry that throughout their lives and go into politics and continue that, they're surviving.
Yeah.
They're
surviving.
You
can.
I know.
It was a bad joke.
But once I think people know this is the line.
Yeah. That's the way to do it.
That's the way. And at the end of the day, that person that paid $1,200 is only one vote. So it's to try to get the
know
mass.
what? Those $1,200 donators, they come with a whole team of voters.
They all go with a team of voters. But it's to ignite the fire and get every citizen to vote.
Yeah. To
go and vote and to be more educated and aware of what's going on in their community, and if they're upset, to learn more about it. And
well, I think from the last election, we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Signs don't equate to votes anyways, so the money that you have to have for a campaign, if you're spending
$49,000
on signs, I don't know whether that's going to work for you.
Yeah. Well, it was on signs and everything. Yeah, if your campaign is $49,000 versus a campaign,
you still need to have a reputation of character, integrity, and you need to have friends that are behind you, that have families behind you.
Yes.
You can't buy your way into an election in North Bay.
No.
Right. So it's just not worth it.
So name recognition.
Well, reputational recognition, I think, is an important thing. Name recognition is, of course, important. But I'll be wrong, but I think a lot of people judge who they vote for on the character of what they think of that person and what they hope from that person, right?
Right.
And but I could be proven wrong.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're
we
welcome.
covered a lot of ground.
We did more than what we said.
I might split this up so that we can keep the politics on one side, and it was great that we could share your award that you earned working in the community. I knew you do a lot of stuff, you and your sister, so that's great.
Yeah, and it just go figure that it was on the same day.
Yeah.
Mine was supposed to be last Thursday.
Okay.
And they canceled it because the CAO of the Y, Helen Francis, was a retirement party in Sudbury, and the staff of North Bay went to Sudbury.
Right.
And when they said, how's the 27th? And I went, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
Anyways, thanks again. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, I'm working on my winter edition for the Back in the Bay magazine. I appreciate a couple subscribers and some one or two more last-minute advertisers would be good. But the winter edition should come out before Christmas. It will come out before Christmas. And thanks for everybody's support of Small Town Times and Back in the Bay magazine. And I put out a newsletter 3 times a week. It's called the Essentials. Echo Essentials for the North Bay Echo Podcasting Network, and I would appreciate if you subscribe to that free digital newsletter I put out, because it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I throw in little things that only can come from me, right? So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know when